My name is Sister Sarah, and my community is the Sisters of St. Francis of the Immaculate Conception. When I was in grad school, I was cornered by a nun, and she said to me, "Have you discerned your vocation?" And I said, "No." And she said, "Well, I think you should start." And I was like, "No." And she's like, "We're gonna meet once a month, and we're gonna discern your vocation." I was like, "No." But I did. She was kind of pushy, so I did. Nuns are pushy, and so so I started discerning, and that's when I seriously looked at what is God calling me to in my life. And it took me about 1.5 years, and I prayed every day that God would let me know what His will was. And I had I would say, "God, give me a sign, give me a sign what your will is." And one day I walked into the chapel at the Newman Center, and I walked in, and there was no one else was in the chapel. And all of a sudden, this nun in full habit walked in front of me and sat down in the pew right in front of me. And I was like, "No, God." I'm like, "I am not going to be a nun. You are kidding." And so I walked out of the chapel, and there was this guy that I had a crush on. And I was like, "That's my sign. I'm going to marry that man right there." And so I was kind of looking for all these signs, but eventually I had sat down to pray, and I wrote pros and cons about married life and religious life, and then I wrote signs from God that was called to religious life or called to married life. And when I got done, even though I was trying to weigh it towards the marriage side, I got done and it was very clear that I was called to be a sister. And so I told God, "Are you kidding? I can't be a sister." And I had a list of reasons why I could never be a sister. And when I got done telling God what I thought of His plan for my life, I opened up a book I had been reading about with St. Therese of Lisieux, some of her writings. And the very first line that I read was, "God's arms are the elevator which lift you up." And so I had told God why I could never ever be a sister. And God told me that, "You're right, but I'll do the work in you. I'm the one who's going to help you to be a sister and give you the grace to be a sister." And so I said yes. So that's kind of how I figured out what God wanted me to do. I searched for communities like every weekend from December until March, the year I was going to graduate from school. And I slowly started to kind of decide I needed this, or I wanted that, or I felt called to this. And slowly I realized I was Franciscan at heart. And so that kind of limited my search. And then I realized that I wanted a smaller community rather than a larger community, because I wanted to know my sisters and love my sisters, and I wanted them to know me. And so eventually it came down between two communities, ours and another one in Indiana. And I went on retreat for a little weekend and discerned. I did my pros and cons list again, and I looked, and I realized that God was calling me here. I love the joy that the sisters had, and I loved the simplicity of life, and I love the Franciscan, so here I came. You should come to our community because it rocks.